You've probably heard by now, Dimension Valley is officially banned from Gym Leader Challenge. Yeah, I realize how long ago that was. Look, I had a script started, but I'm doing that daddy daycare thing right now while we're between schools, and there's a lot of good stuff on TV to watch right now at night, and then suddenly taxes were due, which is really rude of the government right after a big ban like this. But like I said, I have thoughts about this ban and sort of the discussion surrounding this ban and the state of GLC as a whole. So let's get into it. This ban comes on the heels of the release of telepathic psychic energy and with deoxys looming on the horizon. Psychic is a type that has some of the best consistency and card advantage options, the most efficient engines, and the most numerous ways to take multiple prizes in a single turn. 1/3 of the players at the last 3K tournament played Psychic, and the tourney ended in a Psychic against Psychic mirror in the finals. The type keeps receiving support each set that should embarrass whoever is designing the cards for the other types. Like, seriously, have you seen the new Darkness energy? While it was difficult for folks to pin down which specific card made Psychic so good even before Telepath Energy, Dimension Valley quickly became the frontrunner for discussion. Psychic already has 2 Stage 1 energy accelerators, but Dimension Valley cheats energy on a whole other level. It effectively generates energy from thin air, like you're playing TCG Pocket, rather than needing you to feed it actual energy cards from your hand or discard pile. And it's a stadium card, so it's usable as early as turn 1, very searchable, gets around ability lock, and can be instantly recurred and looped with Lusamine. And it doesn't have any restrictions on bench Pokemon versus active. The only downside is it only helps with colorless costs, which has restricted which attackers see use in Psychic if they can't benefit from that colorless cost reduction. Because of all that, Dimension Valley ended up being the card selected to eat a ban from Psychic. Remember that the reasoning for D-Valley getting banned now is a bit more complicated than just trying to nerf Psychic. Mahone posted a video explaining his ban philosophy for GLC. If you haven't seen it and are interested in why things do or don't get banned, I highly recommend you check it out. I'm not going to rehash all of it here. Go give Mahone those views. He uses that YouTube money to feed his baby Mahones, and YouTube is just a fun hobby for me. I think the biggest question here is, does this actually accomplish anything meaningful? Opinions seem to vary on how important Dimension Valley is to the de facto BDIF right now, which is not to blindside. Early reports from players seem to indicate that yes, the deck does feel more fair to play with and against with D-Valley gone, that the early pressure game from Iron Boulder is greatly reduced without it, and there's more variance when you might have Malamar or Xatu prized. But a lot of folks seem to think that the deck doesn't lose all that much with D-Valley, and that actually Giratina is a much more important piece of the deck's core strategy. It enables the blindside attacks with its easy bench pings, which also add to Blacephalon turns to enable further multi-prizing there. It's the main source of damage counters for Monkey Dory to throw at the opponent, which is, again, another source of taking multiple prizes. And it's an infinitely recurable attacker that takes pressure off of the deck's recursion pieces. But remember, Mahone says he doesn't ban cards to balance the meta, or at least not to balance the types. A card is banned when it doesn't vibe with what his vision of the format is, as is the case with DCE and Twin, which were banned for being too generic and easy sources of energy acceleration. Mahone has said that Giratina very much fits into his ideal vision of the format, aka he really likes Giratina as a card, so it's not getting banned anytime soon. And to be fair, in terms of looking for something to ban, Dimension Valley's unrestricted attack cost reduction effect is pretty much unique in the format. Most other similar effects are either applied by a Pokemon only to itself, which has low damage usually, or as a tool that only works for one Pokemon with a major restriction like being behind on prizes or only working for a specific type of Pokemon like Hop's Choice Band, or this effect would be on a stage 2 like Florges, which is Fairy type, so that's a whole other downside. I'd like to talk about the 2 other issues of discussion that this whole thing leaves unresolved. 2 things that I think will eventually come to a head in the coming months. First up is the Natu issue. Natu was the other card that Mahone was considering to ban. And in fact, he has posted that if Natu does end up needing to be banned, he would prefer to just label all ancient traits as problematic and reban them as a group. I want to preface this by reminding everyone that this part of the ban discussion is still ongoing. Mahone's views may change on this in the coming days or weeks, so take this with a grain of salt. I am telling you how things were going as of mid-April. So currently there are 44 ancient trait cards in the format, 10 of which have either the Plus or Barrage trait, and those are spread across 8 types, although Excadrill is ineligible to be played in Metal for now. Of those, Grass and Dragon only get stage 2s with that trait, and only Colorless, Water, Psychic, and Fire get a basic Pokemon with one of these Barrage or Plus traits. They do see a fair bit of competitive use. And the reason I'm mentioning these 2 traits specifically is because Barrage and Plus are, of course, the main way that you see ancient traits being used to take additional prizes in a single turn, which is very powerful in a single prize format. Now, some would say that Torchic is one of the few things keeping Fire from being completely irrelevant thanks to the Pink Pony Slug deck. And then Swellow and Bunnelby have helped Colorless to at least be middle tier after the banning of Double Colorless and Twin Energy, as it's arguably the Harambe deck that has kept Colorless going competitively recently. So the argument that I've seen for banning all ancient traits are that specifically the Delta Plus and Omega Barrage ancient trait Pokemon interact poorly with the TMs that have come out in recent years, specifically the ones that give damaging attacks to Pokemon. And of course, that's TM Blindside and TM Crisis Punch. These traits were originally balanced by giving these Pokemon horribly weak or expensive attacks, and the introduction of these TMs interacts with ancient traits in a way that artificially speeds up the format in an undesirable way. Now, personally for me, I see very little distinction between how TMs interact with ancient trait Pokemon versus how something like a Muscle Band interacts with a Pokemon like Guzzlord or Marshadow. In both cases, you have Pokemon with very strong inherent effects that are hampered by having very weak attack stats, which are then alleviated by the use of an external tool. Yes, 4 energy is a lot more than 3 energy if you're comparing Guzzlord to TM Blindside, but Guzzlord also has access to cards like B-String that make it less of an issue, so that's kind of a minor nitpick to me. If you're going to ban ancient traits on the principle that using damage enhancing tool cards to take multiple prizes with one attack is bad for the format, then to me that same principle should be applied to targeting cards like Guzzlord and Togekiss as well. But I don't think anybody really wants that, so I don't agree that the format needs this as a guiding principle specifically. However, the bigger problem with banning ancient traits as a class is pretty clear on its face, I think. If ancient traits are just removed from the format altogether, then that would be 44 cards that would be removed totally. Effectively the largest mass banning of cards we've seen yet in GLC. Now arguably you could say there are already effectively hundreds of cards banned from GLC due to the fact that rulebox cards are banned from the format. But I'll point out that ruleboxes have been banned from GLC from the beginning. So that's different than taking a bunch of cards that were legal in GLC for years that people have been brewing and playing with, and that arguably weren't causing any problems individually, and then suddenly they can't be used. While it's true that ancient traits were initially banned from GLC when the format became a thing back in 2021, They've been legal in the format since late 2022, which is arguably longer than the majority of players have been playing the format at this point. So most players have likely come into the format with ancient traits already being part of the GLC card pool. Now there are several other ancient trait Pokemon that don't have the plus or the barrage trait that are relevant to specific deck archetypes. We've seen Barrier Electrike that's been used before when Raikou was not banned in concert with Thornton to charge up energy on the bench safely without worrying about being gusted. Celebi is an important card in most grass spread decks for being the only basic Pokemon in grass with a damage spreading attack, as is Dustox for being able to reward spreading chip damage with double prizes from a TM Blindside. And Togekiss, the fairy one, is one of the few sources of energy acceleration available in fairy decks, and the evolution ancient trait works especially well with cards like Devolution Spray to spam the ability and maximize the number of energy hit, hopefully to enable a decent attack from something like Moonwatch Party Clefable. Now, these are all innocent bystanders in this debate, and they become unnecessary collateral damage in the wake of an ancient trait ban. Their strange and wacky traits often provide a ton of fodder for deck builders and tinkerers to create new and interesting strategies in the format that involve old and obscure cards rather than just being about power creep and silver border maxing. While I do actually believe that Natu is a problem right now, arguably more so than Dimension Valley, honestly, I strongly believe that banning all 44 ancient trait Pokemon just as a rule would absolutely be a net negative for the format. If Natu is the problem, then Natu should be banned. But I think it's silly to suggest throwing out an entire bathtub just to clean one piece of dookie out of the tub. Hashtag parenting life, sup. So the other issue is the matter of fighting. Fighting was the other dominant type at the perfect order 3K. It wasn't merely second place to Psychic either. If Psychic wasn't there, then everyone would be talking about what an oppressive type fighting was in the format right now. Fighting also specifically targets and suppresses 3 other specific types in the format, largely due to the impact of Marshadow and how lopsided it is as an attacker into lightning, dark, and arguably colorless due to hitting all of those types for weakness. Fighting continues to get strong tools in the Mega Evolution block, with Barbaracle and Tarragon being significant boons to the type, and Tyrantrum presenting a powerful new top end for that type as well for those willing to invest resources into getting it out. And arguably, it was Psychic that was the only thing holding fighting back, thanks to Okidogi being weak to Psychic and Cresselia countering RDT's spread strategy. If Psychic does take a dip in numbers from this ban, what is stopping fighting from just taking Psychic's place as just being the next 30% meta deck in the format? But again, this is all seemingly by design. Mahone's ban philosophy isn't about banning cards to shape or balance the metagame. If fighting is a type that creates fun gameplay, no matter how strong it is, then it's okay if it ends up dominating the metagame, at least by my understanding of his philosophy. Which is why, in my opinion, if fighting ever does need to eat a ban in the future, I believe Marshadow is the right card to hit. A basic Pokemon that can just become invincible for an entire game with 2 energy and fighting's multitude of permanent damage buffs just seems to not really be fun or fair, especially for the 3 types that have a weakness to fighting. Basically, if you're rocking Marshadow in your deck and you happen to get paired up into Lightning, it's kind of just game over from the rip. I know a lot of people think that Okidogi is the real problem, but I'm telling you right now, that will never get banned. It's just an attacker. It's a stat stick. And those are pretty much ineligible for a ban under Mahone's philosophy, but also it just has so many more commonly played counters than Marshadow does. you can attack its ability or its special energy, and anything that can take out a Whale Lord also takes out Okidogi. So if you're losing to Okidogi, then you're probably also just losing to Whale Lord too. Marshadow's effect requires much more niche counters. You either need a Shred attack that can ignore the effect, a way to Gust twice in one turn, or a Gust effect plus a strong enough bench snipe attack, or a board full of only high HP Pokemon, like Stage 2s, but also a way to remove the chip damage that comes from Tinglu and Halucha. Other than Shred, this means needing multiple specific pieces in one turn to counter the Marshadow, compared to Okidogi having a bunch of single piece silver bullet cards that can counter it pretty effortlessly if you really want to. To me, Marshadow may not be the outright strongest card in fighting, but it does have the most problematic play pattern, and I just think it interacts poorly with the format. So as always, let me know what you think about the ban and about the current state of the format in general. Send it at me in the comments down below, like and subscribe the video to let me know you've hit the end, and keep on playing GLC.